Um, for the reactivity towards other reactive dogs, that's normal. You can correct it, and he can learn to walk past dogs without being like responsive.
Yeah.
But it's most likely going to be at a higher level, and technically he's valid.
Yeah.
Right, because he doesn't understand, like, it's just an untrained dog or
right.
whatever, right? So if you know you've not had any reactivity towards calm dogs, dogs in passing, excited energy, whatever, and the only time you really have to correct them is if it is in response to another reactive dog. What I would assume is every time you pass a dog is that they're gonna be reactive.
Okay.
And then already preemptively bump your number higher.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's his number been on the walks normally?
Normally we've been at about like a 14, 15.
Okay.
And then past dogs I bumped it to like a 17.
Okay.
18. And I get like a strong reaction out of that. Like I could, not that I can't see the muscle twitch before, but like he really
responds.
Yeah, jumps to it.
Now when, let's say you tap him at 17 for another reactive dog, is it the same response, or do you feel like he overrides it?
He breaks like his attention towards it and comes to me, but he's still stiff-bodied and like looking. But he's not reacting back necessarily.
Okay. So what I would do is I'd probably go up to 20.
Okay.
And because you want to stop and then deter the behavior.
Yeah.
So if you're at 17 and you kind of feel like you're more so just managing him, then it's enough to stop him in the moment, but not enough to like tell him like don't do that again.
Yeah.
So then I go to 20, and then same concept. You just every time you see a dog, you just bump to 20. They bark at him, he barks, you tap him, he responds, and he's still staring at them. You can technically correct the staring. You can also let it slide, and then the next time, which is always assuming the worst, and being at 20.
Yeah.
Let's say the dog barks at him and he doesn't respond. Then technically the 20 stopped and then deterred the behavior, right? So just because he's still staring doesn't mean he hasn't learned a lesson. It's just repetition. But then if he's still barking and lunging, then I go to 23, and I just keep building off that. So eventually you hit a number, maybe it's 28, where he's like, okay, like I really don't like the dogs barking at me, but I know if I respond,
I don't like that.
it's gonna get a harsher correction. And then you'll start to see him, like when he sees the dog, he'll just like naturally like turn away. Or if they bark at him, he might like flinch because he wants to, but then he like does something like this, that's perfectly fine too. And eventually that goes away. Reactivity towards other reactive dogs does take longer because unless it's blatantly obvious, you really can't plan for it.
Yeah.
And then like the reason for preemptively bumping is if you're always at 14, you try to bump it up in the moment. By the time that dog is gone and like the reactivity has stopped, like he might think that his reactivity caused the dog to leave.
Yeah.
So then there's a reinforcer. So we always want to try to stop the dog in the context of, so he learns, okay, I saw a dog be reactive, I got corrected, I was still there, dog was still being reactive, nothing happened, other than I got a consequence. Okay?
Yeah.
How's he with dogs behind fences? Like barking dogs?
So usually we're like on sidewalk in the house, the dog's like a good, 15 feet away at that point. We can usually walk right past it. Like there's a house, like without fail, the dog's in the window and just ballistic, like throwing himself at the window without fail every single time. And we can walk past that. He does look, but he stays right by me. We can walk past it. It's really just like dog coming at him.
Sure, on the leash outside.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because sometimes when it comes to like dogs behind fences, if they're being reactive, like it's a nice controlled context to practice.
Going back.
Until you get it done, so then you can use it as a frame of reference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would try that out. Next time you see a dog, just assume they're going to be reactive, go to 20, and then just remember to go back down, whether or not something happens, and then just keep tabs on the next time it happens. Does he respond, or does he keep himself in check? Okay. Anything else?
No. I did lower his food, and he's been eating more consistently.
Yep.
He does, like if I have a meal and I'm like, I usually in the kitchen, but like if I'm sitting on the couch, he does like run right up to me and like want to claim that food is his. I just push him away and don't let him come back up. But like, say Buster does come in, like our older dog comes into the room, he like immediately like dives to come closer to me and like wants not necessarily he's gonna like shove his face in my food and start eating it, but he's like protecting it.
Sure.
Should I have a collar on and correct that behavior, or just keep shoving him away and ignoring him?
Okay, so you're on the couch.
Yeah, like
You're eating.
Yeah. He'll immediately try and come right up next to me. I always push him away.
Mhm.
And he's on the floor and he's sitting and he's just watching.
And he's watching you?
Yeah, he's just sitting there, but he's like
Okay.
aware of me. Like, and
Okay.
so when Buster comes into the room,
Mhm.
that's when he's like back on the couch,
Sure.
back protecting the food.
Okay. So you can do a couple of things. One would be, yes, you can collar him up when you're gonna eat,
Mhm.
but I would, so the moment he shows interest, so if you're in the kitchen,
Yeah.
you make your plate, you go over here,
Mhm.
and he's like this, right? Like, where are we
Right.
going? That's where you would correct.
Okay.
So let's say he's got the collar on, you would just stand there, and you could be at your 14, you'd give a tap, and what we want to see is he goes from looking at you and like concerned about what you're having,
Mhm.
and then he just like walks away.
Okay.
Then you go forward.
Mhm.
He turns around, goes to follow you again, you would stop,
Correct.
correct him,
Okay.
disengage him. If he keeps re-engaging, 14 is too low. You
Okay.
keep going up. It's easiest to do it there. Because if you're on the couch and you're sitting down with your plate and
Yeah.
he's already here, getting him to flush off with just the e-collar is going to be much harder.
Okay.
Okay? Dogs tend to tuck into things. So like you'll be sitting there and he'll like try to tuck into you here.
Yeah.
So it's easiest if he's trying to follow you and you tap him to back him off.
Mhm.
There may be a little bit of confusion because he's learned
Stay by me.
exactly.
Yeah.
But you would just keep going up on the power until eventually he goes, okay, this is not a stay by me. And it won't really affect the heel, or at least it shouldn't, because dogs are all about pictures.
Mhm.
So when you're in a heel, he sees the leash, right? You're outside, it's a very specific looking context. So within the home, that shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, the moment whenever we're in a correct behavior, just like with reactivity, like if you're set aside and he's already like looking and perked up with his ears, like, and I know it's gonna happen,
Yeah.
I correct right there, as opposed to the explosion.
Yeah.
In this case, most dogs show interest, from the get-go. I mean, and you can even be like in the kitchen where you're going in to make food and he's already there. You could actually correct him right there too, because you're telling him, hey, whenever there's me in the kitchen involving food and making the plate and stuff, it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
So technically, if you do it earlier on and you go to have a seat to go eat, he shouldn't even be in the picture.
Yeah.
Okay? That should preemptively address the Buster situation.
Okay.
Because he jumps up, you push him off, so you've essentially removed him, but he can still be like engaged on, I want some of what you're having.
Right.
So then when Buster enters, it just pushes him over threshold and he hops back up.
Yeah.
But if he's not even caring about it in the first place, technically we shouldn't see anything.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you did, you'll stop what you're doing and start tapping and then going up until you see him flush off. If you need to give a little bit of incentive using the collar, you can do that as well. But I try to make them learn to get off on their own, because that tends to stick more. Okay? Because if you help him off, you do part of the work for him.
Yeah.
So then eventually he should start to see Buster come in and he won't even care anymore.
Okay.
Because he knows he's going to get remoted.
Yeah.
Okay, and then over time, you can break the habit and not have to worry about being dependent on the collar,
Yeah.
because you spend most of your time in the home. So, but that's what I would do. Okay.
Okay.
Other questions?
No, that was about it.
So when you went over plays with him, how long can he hold it for?
We were only doing like 5 or 10 minutes. There were times when I was back at school and we would put him in like throughout the duration of like meals, so like
Mhm.
20 minutes,
Mhm.
and he was fine. But over summer, I haven't
Reinforce
been,
it?
yeah, I've been
Sure.
doing it a ton.
Okay, so as long as he's done, it's like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then what is your understanding of plays?
I would use treats to lure him there, and then, I mean, now he'll usually go, but then he stays until he's released.
Mm-hmm.
And once he's released, he can do whatever.
And what can he do on plays?
Just keep all of his paws on the mat. Like, he can lay down, he can sit, whatever.
Correct, right? So we have 3 stationary commands: sit, down, and place.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting down being very specific in how the dog is positioned.
Yeah.
Place is go on top of this thing. I don't care what you do, just don't get off.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the easiest to practice, the easiest to teach, the easiest to reinforce. So I always like to teach, especially with these smaller guys, like teaching a little dog to down is a pain. So I usually just tell people don't even worry about it, just do place command. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put pressure behind it, of course. And place command is meant for as long as you need it for. So you can go up to 2 hours, 4 hours, 30 minutes, you pick and choose. And you can start the stuff from the get-go. So we don't do 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 minute increments. Right off the bat, once we teach a dog place, I'll tell the owner, you can do 2 hours. It's just your dog's gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's how they learn to not get off in the first place. With positive reinforcement, you can use it, of course, to show him how to get onto the object. You can use it to reward him, to incentivize him to stay on the object. But ultimately, if he tries to get off, there is no real consequence. Okay, because then if he hops back on and you reward him, he just thinks, well, I got back on, I got rewarded.
Yeah.
He doesn't think that he's not supposed to get off in the first place. Okay, so even though he has a concept of place, we're not going to use the word. We're going to make sure we shape everything using the e-collar first, and then we'll add in the word by the end of class. Okay. So is your collar currently set to 14?
Yes.
What's the lowest he'll respond to?
About 12, 13.
Let's go down to 12. And when you go to approach the object here, we're gonna start by walking up about a foot away. If, because he's familiar with this, if he tries to go, there's a dog troll there. If he tries to go prematurely, I'm gonna have you use your leash to prevent him from going. We want to make sure that he's going in response to the collar itself. And then with place, what I recommend is trying to find a time throughout the day. So like at the end of the day, you always like watch a favorite show or something like that.
Yeah.
Is that you just pop your dog on place so that you're consistently practicing it.
Yeah.
The whole notion of if you don't use it, you lose it applies with dogs. They don't necessarily forget it, but they get sloppy at it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to bring over to the placemat about a foot away. A little bit closer. Yeah, about right there. Excellent. And what we're going to do is you're going to start tapping 3 times first, and if by the 3rd tap he does not respond, you're going to tap and then start to apply subtle pressure, okay?
Okay.
So tap, 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 and then pull. And try going down to 8.
Yeah, that seemed.
Good. And then you're going to cue your release word and then backwards, move backwards.
Release.
Good. And then you're going to come up and approach about a foot away. You're going to repeat that 4 more times from the same direction. There you go. Good. You can get down to 6.
Yeah, that seems very intense though. Release.
Boy, 3 more. Right, so right there is when you put pressure to prevent him, okay? So go ahead and just release.
Release.
Back. Yep.
Release.
Pull, 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 pull. Attaboy, good job. Good. Good boy.
Release, Arch.
2 more. Good.
Release. Come on. Release.
Pull, 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 pull. Now pull a little tap. There he goes. Good. So technically speaking, he doesn't have to release, but for the sake of the exercise, we need him to. We're gonna do 1 more. Now, do you know why he's confused there?
It's because I tapped when he got.
Tip.
So I tried to get him off.
Right, when we try to get him off, but then also he's trying to go and we're restricting him. So now, because he's doing it because he's wanting to avoid the tap.
Yeah.
Which is good, but it's a problem because we need the tap to teach him to go there, right?
Yeah.
So you tap him to get off, and then you also prevented him from going on prematurely. So then that's where he gets a little bit conflicted.
Yeah.
It's normal. Once we start to apply the word, and this exercise itself, we don't do it a whole ton because of that problem. It'll go away. Okay. So now you're gonna do the same process, except you're gonna start to walk around the placemat And you're gonna send Archie still from about a square away, but from different directions.
Okay. Release.
Bump up the 8 again. Really lost contact. Good.
Release.
Good boy.
Release.
3 more.
Release.
2 more. Good.
Release.
Good. 1 more. Right. Right. Very good. So now, same concept, but you're gonna send from about 2 to 3 squares back. Okay, now when you're tapping, so you come to a stop, do the 2 to 3 taps, and if no response, tap and then pull. You're gonna try to refrain from actually taking a step forward.
Okay.
Okay, so we want Archie for the most part to do all the work going from here to there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Release. Release.
Tap and then pull. There goes good. And boy, good job.
Release.
That was good. And boy. 3 more.
Release.
Good. Good.
Release.
Good. 2 more. Good.
Release.
And 1 more. Good. And here we're going to keep them there. And you can go ahead and have a seat and you're going to keep the leash in your hand, okay? Perfect. All right. So what we're doing here is we're teaching what we call the send. Getting Archie to respond to the collar and essentially send in place. So we have 2 parts. We have the send and then the state. The reason why we didn't say place is one, he already has familiarity with it, right? And then 2, like sometimes dogs will guess and not get it right. Where the owner will say something and they'll just hop on the bed. So the issue with that is if you said place and he hopped there, where do we put the remote? Okay, so we always want to make sure that when we shape behaviors, the dog is responding to the remote. So similar to the first class when we did the heel, I said don't worry about the word heel, just turn and tap. So then we knew for sure that it was the tap. Of course, I was getting him to stay at your side, and then we can smack a word on it. With the place command, very much the same. I always shape the behavior first, layer in the word, and then we'll layer in the word before the end of class today. But this way, we are certain that the tap itself, or he understands the tap means go to this object.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the beginning, there can be a little bit of conflict because since he learned heel the the first couple of weeks, tap means essentially to stay at your side.
Yeah.
So then some dogs will kind of stick closer to the owner, so that's why we'll keep tapping and use the leash pull to guide them on top of the object. When it comes to practicing this exercise, you can already start to see his frustration, where he's not wanting to get off, or he's presuming and trying to hop on prematurely because he wants to avoid pressure. So that's why e-collar makes things applicable right off the bat, because now he doesn't want to screw up. Okay, so this exercise you'd only do, I would say, once a day, 3 to 5 minutes, really short. Okay? And we gradually made it more complicated. First, we started about a foot away from the same direction, and then you start to walk around, and it was a foot from different directions, and then we went further, about 2 to 3 feet, getting them to go to the placemat. So you can build that to be as far as you want. Most people will set from like a 4 to 6 foot distance, like the length of a leash. Every now and then, I'll get a person that wants to send their dog to the placemat from anywhere within the home. So they might have like one designated spot, and if they're in the bedroom, the kitchen, the living room, upstairs, basement, whatever, when they say place, the dog will go to that one specific spot. So if you're trying to do something more distanced, you want to start close and then work your way backwards. The reason for changing directions is because if you always practice from one direction, dogs are creatures of habit. So if you always place them coming this way, and then one day you place them coming this way, he'd probably walk around and to go the long way, okay? So I want the dog to learn just the most efficient route, like just go straight to the object. So once all 4 paws are on the object, pressure turns off. Just like if all four paws are on the object, we would feed him. As a reward, he learns, okay, this is where I want to be. Except now if he tries to step off of the object, we would tap him, and he should just step back. Once he's got the concept, the tap should get him to go back onto the placemat. In the beginning, not uncommon to see confusion, where you'll tap him and then he might try to take off from it. So you would just keep tapping, use leash pressure to counter him until he goes, okay, this direction's not working, and he follows the leash, and he hops on, pressure turns off. Okay. Questions on any of this stuff so far?
No.
So when it comes to practicing the stay part, you can work at these 2 things at the same time. You don't have to do one before the other, okay? So I always tell people, if you're gonna watch TV, work from home, be on your computer, read a book, anytime that you're gonna just be stationary for a bit, you can practice stationary work, okay? So if you're gonna watch a movie, take the dog bed, plop it right next to your couch, Archie place, you have the leash on and you can step on it or hold it, and then 30 minutes into the movie, he tries to hop off. I don't say anything, I just simply start tapping him. He should go back on, otherwise if not, I help him. He goes back on and go back to watching TV. 10 minutes later, he tries to sneak off, I tap him, he goes back on, back to watching TV. Hour later, tries to get off, tap him, goes back on, back to watching TV. So you don't even have to get up, okay? So that's why I always suggest people start this in the beginning when they're gonna do nothing. Just be sitting still for a period of time. So that's why you're able to do 2 hours right off the bat, because he's gonna make mistakes. But he needs to make mistakes and then have the aversive habit to learn, oh, that's not an option. Okay? So then, while he's on place, he can sit down, lay down, stand up, chew on a bone, play with a toy, whatever he wants. He just has to stay within the perimeter. Okay? We work on this in stages. The first stage is, of course, right next to you. And like, let's say you're watching the show and then you need to get up. I would get up, I would release Archie first and then get up. Because if you get up and then release him, he's gonna think every time you get up, you're gonna release him. So to avoid that pattern, we flip it. So then this way, there is no kind of visual cue to him. And then, you can release him, go do your thing, come back, send him back to place again, or you can just let him be free and take off his equipment. The second week, he would be placed. You can get up to go do something. He might follow you. You can correct him. He should go back. But then he should be able to hold it. Because you've now at least done a week of corrections. That he's learning that place is something that he does for an extended period of time. And then you go, grab a drink of water, come back, and he should stay put, and you go back to watching your show. So then he's still immediately next to you, but now we're adding getting up and moving around to it. By the 3rd week, you can add a little bit more distance, where Archie will be about 3 to 4 feet away, 4 to 6 feet, still on the leash, and you're being more proactive about getting up and moving around. If you clean or sweep or vacuum or whatever, work out, he has to hold still. By week 4, he can be completely across the room. And same concept, you're moving around, distractions or sitting still and watching TV for a bit. And he's just at a further distance of you, still with the leash on. And then by week 5, you determine how he's progressing. If you feel like he's doing really, really well, you can then just keep him at a distance and then remove the leash or go to put him wherever you normally have his bed be placed. Okay. When it comes to the place command, it's the most versatile command there is. So you can have one spot throughout the entirety of the home. You can have a spot in the living room and a spot in the bedroom. You can have one bed that you move all over the home, and he learns to recognize that one object. The most common one would be people usually have one in the bedroom, one in the living room, or they'll have one thing that they just move around. Place does not have to be anything fancy. It can be a dog bed, it can be a towel, it can be a blanket, it can be an ottoman, it can be a section of the couch. Anything that sets a perimeter. I had a client once use a really big area rug, and he asked if it could be placed. I said sure. I was because it sets a perimeter from the rest of the floor. But his was so big that the dog could walk around and do laps and all that stuff. But I was as long as the dog does not step off the area rug, perfectly fine to use. So you can have more than one object that's placed within a room. But you would either need to differentiate it using different words or some kind of visual cue to point him which one he needs to go to. Okay. Questions on any of that?
No.
When we correct him for breaking the position, we don't say no. We don't say place again. We don't say stop. We don't say stay. We don't say We simply just correct.
Okay.
So let's say you say, so place means go to this object and don't get off. If he goes to the object and then attempts to get off or gets off and you say place and he goes back, you've not taught him to not get off. You've simply reset the command. You said go back to the object. Then 5 minutes later he tries to get off, you say place, he goes back, and you're just resetting the command. In order for him to learn not to do something, he has to attempt it and there be a correction with no warning. Okay? Otherwise, if you use sound to warn him, he thinks he can do it until he hears the sound. And I want him to learn that when I send him to place means to go there and not get off from the get-go. Okay, so it's a tiny little detail, but a lot of people do this because we're sound-based. Where they'll say place and then they complain to the dog, 5 minutes later we'll get off and they'll say place and they'll just kind of back and forth. And even if you correct them, if you said place and correct them, it's still the same concept of you've just sent them back. Nothing said, when I send you there, don't get off, period. Okay. So when you incorporate the word, just be mindful that you're not using sound to correct them and you're going straight to the remote collar. Okay. You can also watch some dogs will press the boundary a bit, where they'll lay down and they'll kind of little by little edge towards the end of the area. And then next thing you know, they're halfway off the bed. The moment you feel like he's sneaking off, you would want to correct right there to send him back. Okay. Sometimes dogs will whine on place because they want to be doing stuff. Or they'll bark in place because maybe someone comes over and he's really excited or something. Is you can correct them for that behavior even though he's on place. So if he's whining, people think oh, the dog's doing what I told him. But they're just whining. I go, well, do you want the dog to whine or not? And they'll go, no, I don't like the whining. I go, then you can correct it. So if he's crying or barking on place and you tap him on the collar, what do you think might happen?
Gets off in place?
Because he might think that being on place is wrong. So then he whines, you correct him, he hops off because he thinks he got corrected for being on place. You would keep tapping, we wouldn't say anything, we would send him back. Okay? So then he's like, that's weird, I got tapped for being on place, but then I hopped off the place and got tapped again. And when I got back on, it turned off. 5 minutes later, he tries to whine, you tap him to correct him, he hops off, you correct him some more, he hops back on, he's like, hey, that's weird, it happened again. Third time he tries to whine, he cries, you tap him, and instead of hopping off, he just kind of sits there and he thinks, and he stops whining. And he's starting to go, okay, last time I hopped off, that didn't work, but I got tapped again. What happens if I don't whine? Nothing. So then he learns, oh, the tap is for what I was doing within the area of place, not necessarily to get off of it. Okay, so it's super common. Typically by the third to fourth time that they hop off in confusion, they tie together that they're supposed to settle down. Okay, questions on any of that?
No, that makes sense.
So place usually gets applied most commonly like while people are eating or when guests come over. And if you like go to a restaurant. So if you like to go to a restaurant, you want to bring him with you, but you don't want to have to worry about what he's doing. Bring a towel, plop it down, Archie's place, and then you can enjoy your lunch or whatever. Everybody's application is different, so you want to think to yourself, time-wise, what's realistic to you? If the only time you think you would use this is like if you go to a restaurant, it's usually like an hour and a half type of thing. Because I suggest within the home you do 2 to 2.5 hours. So you're gonna go longer because you want to compensate for the fact that you're not gonna have people and other dogs and distractions and scents and stuff. So you do longer in the home so that by the time you get to the restaurant, you need him to hold it for an hour. An hour is even easier. Okay, and if you correct him, he'll know what he'll need to do. Excuse me. Questions on any of that?
No, sounds good.
So what we'll do here is I'm gonna have you get up first, wait a moment, and then you'll release him just to see if he's gonna assume that to hop off. And then we're gonna start using the word place, okay? Good.
So, release him. Release!
Yeah, boy, good. So now, sweaty paws. So now, you're gonna start from that 2 to 3 foot distance, and you're gonna cue place first.
Okay.
If Archie goes, we don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
He avoids the tap, okay? If you say place and he hesitates for like a second or so, I start to tap and they start the 3-tap process, and if no response, the tap of the bowl.
Okay.
And then wait a moment and then release.
Archie, place.
Good. Release.
Release.
Good. 4 more.
Place.
Good.
Release.
Little tap. There it goes. Good. And a point.
Place.
Good.
Release. Place. Release.
Good. 2 more.
Place. Release.
1 more.
Place.
Good.
Release.
Excellent. So now same concept, but once you send him, you're gonna wait a moment,
Okay.
and then you're gonna begin to walk around him. Now as you're walking around, if Archie tries to hop off, you're gonna stop moving, tap until he goes back, and then you're gonna reset and try to do a full circle.
Okay. Place.
Good. Good.
Keep going.
Nope, that's good. So once you complete 1 full circle, you can stop and then release.
Release.
Yeah, boy, 4 more.
Should I?
Yeah, so you're still gonna restrict him if he tries to hop on prematurely.
Place.
Right, and then there he goes. Tap and pull. There you go. Good.
Release. Place.
There he goes. Good. So he went to heel, then he did the opposite, and then he did the same. And do one more.
Release. Place. Release.
Yeah, boy, good. So now, same concept, except you're gonna send him in place, you're gonna circle around, you're gonna come to a stop, give him a lot of praise, and then just step back without saying anything. And then if he tries to follow you, correct him to send him back, and then try again. Otherwise, if he holds, you'll release him, and then go to the next one.
Place.
Good boy.
Good boy, Arch. Good boy.
So come in and actually, you're gonna pet him and stuff.
Good boy.
Yeah, like that.
Good boy.
There he goes.
Good boy.
And then back. Good. Then release.
Release.
Good. 4 more.
Place.
Good.
Good boy. He's a good boy. Good boy. Release.
Good. 3 more. Does he like balls or anything?
Yeah, usually.
Is he crazy for him, or is it kind of like,
It's like, eh.
Okay. We'll finish these up and then we'll see if he'll do if he bounces the ball.
Place.
Good.
Good boy. Boy. Release.
Good. 2 more.
Place.
And boy.
Good boy. Good boy. Release.
Good. And last one.
Place.
That's a good one.
Good boy. Good boy. Yeah, good boy. Release. Come on.
Yeah, boy. So going to send him one more time.
Place.
Yeah, he's not overly enthused by it. But like, let's say there was something like he really liked, or was crazy for. You can't see. You can use that to your advantage. So we're practicing this 3 to 5 minutes once a day. Because you already have like the previous work that you did with the positive reinforcement, he's got a good concept of it. So I got you to be practicing this for long. And then in terms of how far you want to be able to send them, that's like a personal preference. So once you see him sending consistently, you can say place, and every time he just goes, no hesitation, very easily and consistently. Then I go, great, don't need to worry about the repetitive place break thing.
Yeah.
You would just send him, and then have him hold it for a period of time. Questions on any of this stuff?
No, this makes sense.
Have you ever tried applying this like when people came over?
When he was first learning it, that was like why I wanted to start it, is for like the people at the front door.
Right.
But he just like loses all concept of it when he's like it. I don't know. I just didn't practice right, I guess, and it never stuck with him. Like to the point where he was under threshold and maintaining it when someone came into the house. So we did try it, but it never really worked. Because he would get off, I'd put him back on, try to get the person in, get off. Yeah.
And was this before like all the behavioral stuff or
Yeah, well, it was like around the same time. He was probably 5 or 6 months when we started.
Sure. So there's technically 2 approaches to people coming over. One of them is place command, because it's what we would call preventative control, where if he's on place and then the guest comes in, if he respects the command, there's going to be no interaction.
Yeah.
Right. Now he could technically be on place, and when the guest comes in, he could still bark, whether in excitement or territorial behavior. So that's why I mentioned earlier that even if he's on place, you can still correct him for stuff. So it's like if my mom sent me to my room and I was like throwing a tantrum, she'd be like, nah, like you go in your room, you don't throw a tantrum.
Yeah.
Okay. So same thing for this guy.
Yeah.
He's throwing a tantrum, you're like, nope, you're on place, and nope, you can't throw a tantrum either. Okay. Is you would use your collar to correct him. If you're going to use this in response to someone coming over, you would already want to have them in place prior to the guest coming over.
Okay.
So we tend to want to apply control when we've lost control.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was going ballistic at the door. Go to your place, right? Whereas if I know my guest is coming at 5:30, 5:15, the dog's already on place. Okay. So then, if you wanted to apply this, like when friends came over or anything like that, you absolutely could. So I remember last time we did the I crouched down, he came to me, no problem, and I was like, I think if done correctly, you guys shouldn't have any issues. Yeah. And then you said your aunt came.
My aunt came. We had never met her. We went on a walk, came in the backyard. I mean, he barked at first, corrected. He calmed down, and then in the backyard he was roaming and would come up to her on his own time, and she'd ignore him, let him sniff. And they played a game of fetch, and he was fine. And then she came up the next day, came in the house, and he was fine. If anything, he just wanted attention from her,
sure.
To be pet.
I'm sorry, did you say they met in the yard or you went for a walk first?
We went for a walk first,
okay.
And then back to our backyard.
Okay, so then you get in the backyard. How did you enter the backyard? Was it like you and Archie, then your aunt, or your aunt, then you and Archie?
I don't remember. I want to say me and Archie, and then she followed because I opened the gate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when did he bark?
She barked when she first came over, and I was like, she was just hanging out front, and I was getting this collar and leash on because it was short notice. She wasn't supposed to watch him. We were supposed to have someone else watch him, but
sure.
It was the very first interaction, me coming out the door, her being out front, just waiting to go walk.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. So it's kind of like a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'm assuming you have to get the 14.
Yeah.
Okay, and then stop right away.
Yeah. He was very stiff and still looking on edge, and then
sure.
The more we walked, the more he relaxed.
Yeah.
And, he stayed in heel and braked when braked, and it was fine. And then after that, it was fine. It's the initial meeting someone.
Yeah. So that's normal. That's good. And then have you had any friends come over since starting the training and all that stuff?
We have had. My sister's boyfriend has come over a few times, and it's very odd. It's very it's either he's crazy or it's no big deal, and it's flip-flops, and I have the collar and I have him on the leash, and sometimes there's no reaction whatsoever right when he comes in, and sometimes there's huge reaction. I have to correct him and walk him around the house and then come back. So I don't know. For the past 2 times, past week, he's come over. It's been fine.
Okay.
No problem. I still keep him on the leash on the collar because I don't want any accidents or anything to happen, but it's been fine. Before, I don't know. It's just very on and off. It's hard to predict.
Okay, so what I would do here is, in the meantime, use this.
Yeah.
Because before, remember, without having an aversive to say don't do that, you're going to struggle with the dog hopping on and off, or not holding to a task reliably.
Yeah.
So you can place them prior to any guests coming over, and then I'd most likely tap the door unlock, whatever, tell him to come in. You're already standing there with the leash and the collar.
Yeah.
And then if he barks, you're going to treat it like reactivity. okay, expecting that he might get confused and flush off.
Yeah.
Then correcting him back onto the place. And once you feel like he's in a relaxed state, you can drop or leash or whatever and then go off. And then just keep him there for the period of time you want him to be there for.
Yeah.
And then, so technically speaking, there is an exercise that we do for people coming into the home. So place is a physical means of control. He's on the opposite of the bed. He cannot get off. If he can't get off, he can't like bark or like lunge at your guests or whatever, right? Or jump on them in excitement. But there's nothing that really tells the brain to not be territorial. So let's say you have him on place and they come in and maybe he's not barking, but you'll be like grumbling. The grumbling is residual. And you can correct the grumbling. But ideally, you want the dog to be in a passive state when the guest comes in, because that's technically like the reinforcer. The knock happens, the dog barks, you open your door, the guest comes in, that reinforces the bark, that reinforces the territorial behavior.
Yeah.
So if the dog barks, I address them, I calm them down, and then I let the guest in. Technically, I'm reinforcing the dog being in a passive state, okay? So we always want to calm the dog down first before we let the guest come in. But most people tend to want to rush through things and like let the guest in, but then the dog is going ballistic.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the meantime, you can do this just as a Band-Aid type thing. And then you're not having to do a whole walk around the block type of thing to settle him.
Yeah.
Like we're doing this and you're going to calm down one way or another.
Yeah.
Okay. And got to get a feel for that. So then the next thing would be, and that's normal, because I know like last time when I saw how many crowds down, you went up to me no problem, right? Is because the knock triggers territorial mindset. He can't help that. He's not sitting there plotting his day going, man, if he comes over, today's gonna be a bad day for him, or like today's gonna be a good day. So the knock will always trigger territorial mindset, and then in response you have to tell him to like just chill. And this is a permanent thing. So like to this day, if somebody knocks, my dogs are gonna bark.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand that like I have a friend coming over at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
They're just like, there's a random knock here and what's going on. Except my dogs love people and aren't nervous or anything, so they open the door, they're like, oh, it's people. And they just like switch, right? Whereas for him, the inconsistency of it most likely due to his nervousness. I mean, there could be other factors in it as well, like maybe there's residual stress or something from something before, earlier in the day. Maybe he heard something earlier, you know? But essentially, it's going to get you more consistency because you will be addressing them each time. So then, like I have a case right now where their dog approached me, no problem outside, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, he's snarled and like tried to bite people before. And they're like, oh, this is crazy because normally he would try to go after you.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's because I've seen him 5 times. There's been no negative interaction. Now he's in a passive state. And the dog approached me like he approached me.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's part of it. I was like, but had I approached him, that could have been a different story. So, but I told them, you know, even if he greets people outside like this and everything's going great, and all of a sudden you have someone come over, I was like, I expect your dog to be defensive because of the whole situation of the knock causing territorial instinct.
Yeah.
So, what we could, because this is number 3 for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then the next thing, and this is personal preference about how you feel about his progression, is if you want to cover people entering the home. I have to send you a video that I did with the previous client to give you an idea of how we handle that, and then you can set up a scheduled in-home through Maria. Okay. And then I show you the other approach, which is what I call intervention. So prevention is control, so we don't see the problem. Intervention is we have the problem and we got to stop it as it's happening.
Yeah.
You know, so heel technically is a preventative measure. He's stuck on your hip. We shouldn't see reactivity. If you do see reactivity, like with other reactive dogs, now he's blowing off the heel. Okay, well now I have to intervene and stop the reactivity as it's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have both approaches, and then that it would be pairing that with like the stuff that we did before with the adding positive with him approaching people and stuff to incentivize a quicker turnaround time.
Yeah.
And then class 5, if everything's going well, we can jump into recall. And then class 6 can be whatever you'd like it to be.
Okay.
And the recall takes a while to teach,
Yeah.
to get consistent, like reliable off leash. But it's easy to learn. Exercise is the same, super simple to practice. It's just a matter of, well, then I gotta go to the park, pop them on a long leash,
Yeah.
let them be a dog, and then find opportunities to practice. Okay?
Yeah, and I have done that. Like, you go to the park on a long leash maybe once a week, but I've never done it with the collar, just reward them for coming back to me, so.
Yeah, and you can keep doing that.
Yeah.
But then we're gonna put pressure behind it, of course. And then there's stages to it, and then we wanna proof it. Because if you, just like earlier, if you tap him for like whining and he hops off, same thing happens with recall, is if you call your dog and like you tap too late, they'll run off.
Yeah.
So then we want to, I give you the steps to proof it as well.
Yeah.
Because the e-collar should never mean run away.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of time to get it to a point where you feel pretty concrete on like, he's got solid recall. Okay?
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think the biggest thing I want to accomplish is just being calm around people. That would be amazing. Like new people or people coming to the house.
Okay, so try this. Because the only way to really know is if you like kind of spearhead it. Would be, have them on place, have people come over, and just focus on, do I have the ability to calm my dog down? Okay, and then just have them ignore him. If you feel like he's in a state where like you could release him and like you feel like he would be social, you can do that, but just tell your guests, I'm gonna release Archie, and I know he's cute, but just ignore him.
Yeah.
Okay? Because then even if he feels like calm and like he's walking around, he's like checking people out, and someone's like, oh my God, hey you, right? And then the dog triggers. That's a normal response, because he's just coming out to get a feel for things.
Yeah.
And I would even, if you can, have people that he's not met before come over. And instead of doing the meet outside, walk around deal, like they just enter the home.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the hardest one.
Right.
If you can get that done, then everything else is easy.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
No, I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your homework for the week is 3 to 5 minutes a day, once a day. The place to release exercise. Once you get it to a point where you feel like he's really good, you don't have to do anymore, you just focus on the stationary work. And you can do them both at the same time. You can do stationary work multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Because it's not redundant. It's just go here and don't get off. So you can do 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, 2 hours in the evening. You can do 10 minutes in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and 30 minutes in the evening. You pick and choose. Dogs sleep 16 to 20 hours a day as it is. You're just picking and choosing when he does it some of that time. Okay? So there's no such thing as too much when it comes to the stationary aspect of it. And then just think to yourself, like realistically speaking, how long do I need Archie like to behave himself on place? And if the answer is 4 hours, well, at least 2 to 3 times a week you want to practice a solid chunk where he would do like a long 4-hour duration. It doesn't add up like doing 30 minutes here, 30 minutes here, 30 minutes here, and all of a sudden not hold it for 2 hours. He has to be made to stay put for an extended period of time and be corrected in order for him to be able to do that. Okay. And I think that's it. Anything else?
No.
So if you don't get anything from me, please shoot me an email asking for the video, and I'll send that to you so you can review it, and then feel free to just start replying, just having people come over.
Yeah.
So this way you have an idea of like, the progression and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then remember, when it comes to Archie's behavior and behaving well around people, it's because one, you're reinforcing your rules, right? And making him be a good dog, so to speak. But at the same time, you're also like doing things in a way, like even though we might be challenging him, like for instance, with people coming over and you're not walking him around the block with them anymore, you're technically making it harder for him, but you're gonna have the means of communication to calm him down within the context.
Yeah.
Is that when you bring them into situations, you do so correctly. Because if you bring them into somebody who's like, oh my God, look at this cute dog, this and that, they're big energy, I'm gonna say he's not gonna like it.
Yeah.
Right? So then I'd have to say, yes, you wanna meet my dog, great, but calm it down.
Yeah.
Okay? Otherwise, if they're not willing to, I'd be like, then you're not meeting my dog. Otherwise, you're just putting them in a bad situation.
Yeah, setting up to fail.
Yeah, so as much as we have a high standard for my dogs, I also advocate for them, and then don't put them in situations that wouldn't be like realistic. So, okay. Otherwise, he's doing good.
He's asleep.
Is he?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me think here. Yeah, that's how I would do the next few classes, okay?
Okay.
Awesome. Great. Or release.
Release.